He found a crying alien child in the alley. What happened next? Changed the entire colony forever. The atmospheric processor wheezed like a dying man, and Marcus Wrench Kowalski knew exactly why. 23 years of keeping machinery alive in the vacuum of space taught a man to recognize the sound of impending catastrophe. He adjusted his headlamp and crawled deeper into the maintenance shaft, his weathered hands already reaching for the sonic wrench clipped to his belt. "Come on, Bolt," he muttered to the German shepherd-sized maintenance dog padding behind him. The animal's cybernetic implants glowed soft blue in the darkness, designed to help navigate zero-gravity repairs. Out here on Kepler 442b, they just made him look like something from a fever dream. The mining colony of New Pittsburgh stretched above them, 3,000 souls scraping rare earth elements from a planet that wanted them all dead. Wrench had been keeping their life support running for 8 years now, ever since he'd mustered out of the colonial Marines with shrapnel in his leg and ghosts in his head. The work was honest, solitary, and it kept the nightmares at bay. Most days. Bolt's ears perked up, cybernetic enhancers swiveling toward something Wrench couldn't hear. The dog whined, a sound that cut through the processor's labored breathing. "What is it, boy?" The shaft opened into a junction chamber, one of dozens scattered throughout the colony's bowels. Emergency lighting cast everything in sickly yellow, revealing pipes, cables, and... Wrench froze. A creature huddled against the far wall, no bigger than a human child, but definitely not human. Its skin looked like living crystal, faceted and refracting light into prismatic patterns. Thin cracks spider-webbed across its torso, leaking some kind of luminescent fluid. When it looked up, Wrench saw eyes like cut diamonds, ancient and afraid. "Jesus Christ," he breathed. The thing made a sound. Not quite music, not quite speech. Subsonic frequencies that seemed to vibrate through his bones. Bolt whimpered and took a step forward, tail wagging uncertainly. Wrench had seen aliens before. The galaxy was full of them. Most peaceful, some not, but he'd never seen one like this, and he'd definitely never seen one bleeding to death in his maintenance tunnel. "Easy there," Wrench said, the same tone he'd use with a wounded animal. The creature's diamond eyes tracked his movement as he approached slowly. Up close, he could see the damage was worse than he'd thought. Whatever this thing was, it was dying. His hand moved toward his comm unit automatically. Protocol was clear. Unknown alien, probable illegal entry. Notify colonial authority immediately. Director Voss would have a security team down here in minutes. The creature made that sound again, weaker now. Its crystalline hand reached toward Bolt, who had crept close enough to sniff. When their skin touched, the dog's cybernetic implants suddenly stopped their usual, high-pitched whining. The constant electrical feedback that had plagued Bolt since his military service went silent. Wrench stared. In 8 years, nothing had given his old partner relief from that cyber stress. "Aw, hell," he muttered, and reached for his medical kit, instead of his comm. 3 hours later, Wrench sat on his apartment floor watching the strangest thing he'd ever seen. The alien, who he'd started thinking of as the kid, was teaching Bolt to play some kind of harmonic game. The creature would hum at different frequencies, and Bolt's cybernetics would respond with complementary tones. It was like watching a conversation in a language made of music. The emergency sealant had stopped the worst of the bleeding, but Wrench could tell this was a temporary fix. Whatever species this was, they weren't designed for the colony's atmosphere. The crystalline skin was slowly clouding, losing its inner light. "So what are you?" Wrench asked aloud. "And why are you in my maintenance tunnels?" The creature looked up at him and made a complex series of sounds. When Wrench just stared blankly, it tried again, this time incorporating gestures. Pointing to itself, then to the air, then making a motion like something being torn apart. "Your family?" Wrench guessed. "They're gone?" A sound like breaking glass. Even without understanding the language, Wrench recognized grief when he heard it. Bolt padded over and rested his head on the creature's lap. Those diamond eyes closed, and for a moment, the apartment filled with a harmony so beautiful it made Wrench's chest ache. He'd heard that sound before, in the few moments between waking and sleeping when his mind forgot about the civilians he'd failed to evacuate from Titan Station. When he could almost remember what peace felt like. His comm unit chirped. "Kowalski, report to administration." Priority 1. Wrench looked at the alien, then at Bolt, whose cybernetics were humming in perfect harmony with their new friend. Whatever this kid was, whoever was looking for them, Wrench had a feeling his quiet life was about to get a lot more complicated. "Come on," he said, helping the creature to its feet. "Let's get you hidden first. Then I'll figure out what the hell we're going to do." Director Helena Voss had the kind of smile that belonged on a corporate recruiting poster, all white teeth and calculated warmth. She also had the kind of security file that would make most people run screaming. But Wrench had learned not to dig too deep into colony politics. Bad for one's health. "Marcus," she said, gesturing to a chair across from her pristine desk. "Thank you for coming so quickly. I have a situation that requires your unique expertise." Wrench remained standing. "If this is about the atmospheric processor in Sector 7, I've got it handled. Just need to replace some worn seals. Actually, it's about our recent security concerns." Voss activated a holographic display showing colony blueprints. "We have reason to believe unauthorized individuals may be using the maintenance tunnels to move through the colony undetected." Unauthorized individuals? Aliens, Marcus. Specifically, members of a species called the Vel'Thari, crystalline beings with some unusual abilities. She leaned forward. "They're refugees, technically, but their presence here violates several colonial regulations. More importantly, some of them may be dangerous." Wrench kept his expression neutral. "Never heard of them." "Of course not. The information is classified. But I need someone with intimate knowledge of the tunnel systems to help our security teams conduct sweeps. Someone who knows every pipe, every junction, every place someone might hide. And if I find any of these Vel'Thari." Voss's smile never wavered. "You report their location immediately. They'll be transferred to appropriate facilities where they can be properly processed." Something cold settled in Wrench's stomach. He'd heard that tone before, usually from officers who considered civilian casualties an acceptable cost of doing business. "I'll keep an eye out," he said. "Anything else?" "Just one more thing." Voss gestured to a man standing in the corner, tall, pale, with the kind of scars that spoke of violence as a profession. "This is Grim Vex, our new security consultant. He'll be accompanying you on some of your routine maintenance calls." Vex nodded without speaking. Wrench noticed the sonic weapon clipped to his belt, military-grade and highly illegal in civilian areas. "Looking forward to working with you," Vex said, his voice like gravel in a cement mixer. Wrench left administration with a growing certainty that he'd stepped into something much bigger and nastier than a simple maintenance problem. The kind of situation that ended with body bags and official reports that didn't match what really happened. The kind of situation he'd sworn to avoid after Titan Station. He found Dr. Yuki Tanaka in Medical Bay 3, treating what looked like a construction accident. Except construction workers didn't usually have burns in perfect geometric patterns. Tanaka looked up when he entered, her expression guarded. "Marcus, what brings you to my domain?" "Hypothetical question," Wrench said, closing the door behind him. "If someone found an injured alien in the maintenance tunnels, what would be the proper medical protocol?" Tanaka's hands stilled on her instruments. "Hypothetically? Report it to Colonial Authority immediately. Director Voss has been very clear about unauthorized alien contact. And if that alien was, say, a child who'd been separated from their family, still the same protocol." Tanaka met his eyes. "Officially." They stared at each other for a long moment. Then Tanaka turned back to her patient, speaking quietly. "Hypothetically, if someone were treating a Vel'Thari, they'd need to understand that their physiology is silicon-based rather than carbon. Their circulatory System uses a crystalline matrix that can be disrupted by atmospheric contaminants common in human colonies. Without proper treatment, the crystallization process begins to reverse, leading to what humans might call melting. How long would they have? Depends on age, health, exposure level. A juvenile? Maybe 72 hours before permanent damage occurs. Wrench felt ice in his veins. And the treatment? Specialized atmospheric processors, harmonic therapy to realign the crystalline matrix, and most importantly, she looked at him directly. Contact with other Vel'Thari. Their species has a symbiotic resonance system. Isolation is slowly fatal. Where would someone find other Vel'Thari? Tanaka was quiet for so long, Wrench thought she wouldn't answer. Then, there are rumors. Detention facilities in the outer sectors, places where aliens awaiting processing are held. Processing for what? I don't ask questions I don't want answered, Marcus. Neither should you. As Wrench left medical, he passed Grim Vex in the corridor. The man's pale eyes tracked his movement like a predator sizing up prey. Time was running out. Wrench found Bolt and the alien child exactly where he'd left them, curled up together on his couch. But something had changed. The creature's crystalline skin was dimmer, the cracks spreading like frost on a window. When it looked up at him, those diamond eyes held a resignation that no child should ever have to carry. "Hey there," Wrench said softly, kneeling beside them. "How are you feeling?" The creature made a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze, but weaker than before. Bolt whined and nuzzled closer, his cybernetic implants pulsing in sympathy. Wrench activated his personal computer and pulled up everything he could find on Vel'Thari physiology. What he found made his blood run cold. The species was native to high-resonance crystal caves, their entire biology built around harmonic frequencies. Separated from their family groups, they literally began to lose cohesion at the molecular level. This kid was dying, and according to Dr. Tanaka, there were others being held somewhere in the colony. A soft knock at his door made all three of them freeze. Wrench checked his security monitor and saw someone he didn't recognize. Another alien. This one adult-sized, but clearly the same species. Its crystalline features were more mature, and it moved with the careful precision of someone accustomed to being hunted. Wrench opened the door. "I am Jorik," the alien said, in accented but clear English. "My name in my language is Thribal Ka Mor. I search for lost family." The child on Wrench's couch suddenly sat up straight and made a sound like a bell choir. Jorik's entire body seemed to brighten, resonating in response. "Thries Ka Nur," Jorik said, relief evident in every harmonic. "Little song of our family. We thought you were taken." "Thrin," Wrench said, trying out the shortened name. The child's eyes met his, and that wind chime sound grew stronger. "Is that what I should call you?" A nod, followed by a complex series of sounds directed at Jorik. The adult alien's expression darkened. "Thrin says you have been kind, that your companion beast has shared harmony." Jorik looked at Bolt, whose tail was wagging despite the serious situation. "This is unexpected. Most humans see us only as resources to be exploited." "What kind of resources?" Jorik was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried harmonics of fear and rage. "Our people can sense structural flaws in metal, crystal, any solid matter. We can tune resonance frequencies to find mineral deposits, detect weaknesses in ship hulls, diagnose problems in machinery that your instruments cannot see. To most humans, we are living tools." Wrench thought about how Thrin's presence had immediately calmed Bolt's cybernetic stress. How the processor in Sector 7 had been running perfectly since he'd been carrying Thrin's harmonic signature on his clothes. "Someone's been using your people for mining operations. Not just mining. Your director Voss has been selling our abilities to the highest bidder. Families torn apart, children forced to work until their songs die." Jorik's crystalline skin darkened with emotion. "Those who refuse are given to the silencer." "The what?" "Grim Vex. He uses sonic weapons to torture our kind. He calls himself the Silencer because he destroys our ability to sing. Jorik touched his throat. My brother can no longer make harmony. He exists, but he cannot truly live. Wrench felt a familiar rage building in his chest, the same fury that had driven him to volunteer for every dangerous mission back in the Marines, the same anger that had cost him everything when he'd prioritized revenge over protecting civilians. But this time felt different. This time, he had something to protect that was right in front of him. Where are they holding your people? Detention Facility 9, in the asteroid processing sector. But it is heavily guarded, and the Silencer— I know the layout, Wrench interrupted. I installed half the systems in that facility. He looked at Thrin, who was listening intently, despite probably not understanding most of the English. How long does he have? Without family harmony, perhaps 2 days before permanent damage. Then we'd better get started. Planning a rescue mission while maintaining his regular duties proved challenging, especially with Grim Vex shadowing his every move. The man had a predator's patience, never quite close enough to be threatening, never far enough away to ignore. Wrench could feel those pale eyes watching as he ran diagnostics on life support systems, cataloged supply needs, and went through the mundane routine of keeping the colony alive. But Vex didn't know about the abandoned maintenance shaft that connected the residential sector to asteroid processing. Didn't know about the emergency access codes Wrench had, memorized but never logged in any system. Didn't know that Bolt's cybernetic implants could now interface with Vel'Thari harmonic frequencies thanks to his time with Thrin. Most importantly, Vex didn't know that Marcus Kowalski had once been Sergeant Marcus Kowalski, Colonial Marine Corps, with more years of combat engineering experience than the security consultant had birthdays. The plan was simple. Create a distraction, get into the detention facility through the maintenance tunnels, locate the prisoners, and get them out before Vex could organize a response. Simple plans had a better chance of surviving contact with reality. What made it complicated was Thrin. The child was fading faster now, crystal skin growing cloudy despite Dr. Tanaka's covert medical assistance. He'd started following Wrench everywhere, as if proximity to the human could somehow anchor him to existence. When Wrench worked on atmospheric processors, Thrin would curl up nearby and hum soft harmonies that made the machinery run smoother than it had in years. When Wrench slept, Thrin and Bolt would bracket him like guardian angels, their combined presence keeping the nightmares at bay for the first time since Titan Station. Wrench was beginning to understand what Dr. Tanaka had meant about symbiotic relationships. Thrin wasn't just dying from separation from his family. He was dying from the absence of harmony itself. And somehow, impossibly, the rough-edged maintenance engineer and his cybernetic dog were providing just enough resonance to keep the child alive. You're planning something stupid, Dr. Tanaka said during one of her covert medical checks. I can see it in your eyes. Just doing my job. Your job doesn't usually involve adopting alien children. Wrench looked at Thrin, who was teaching Bolt a new harmonic pattern. The dog's cybernetics were now completely integrated with the alien frequencies, creating a trilingual communication system that none of them fully understood, but all of them could feel. Sometimes your job changes, he said. The distraction came courtesy of the atmospheric processor in Sector 7, which chose that evening to suffer what appeared to be a catastrophic cascade failure. Emergency alarms blared throughout the colony as atmospheric pressure dropped and oxygen levels fluctuated wildly. Every available maintenance tech, security officer, and emergency responder converged on the crisis. What they didn't know was that Wrench had been nursing that particular failure for 3 days, carefully adjusting parameters so the breakdown would look critical but be easily reversible once he'd completed his real mission. While Director Voss and Grim Vex coordinated emergency response efforts, Wrench, Thrin, and Bolt made their way through the abandoned maintenance shaft toward Detention Facility 9. Jorik had remained behind to help evacuate any rescued prisoners. His adult size would be a liability in the cramped tunnels. The facility sat on the edge of the colony's main structure, connected by a single umbilical cord of corridors and utility lines. It had been designed as temporary housing for asteroid miners, but the cells and monitoring systems told a different story. This was a prison in everything but name. Wrench accessed the maintenance hatch using codes that should have been changed years ago, but in typical bureaucratic fashion, never were. The facility's security was designed to keep people in, not to prevent maintenance workers from doing their jobs. "Stay close," he whispered to Thrin. The child's crystalline skin was dim enough now that they moved in near darkness, guided only by Bolt's enhanced vision and the faint harmonics that seemed to resonate through the structure itself. They found the first Vel'Thari in cell block C. Wrench had seen prisoners before, but nothing had prepared him for this. Dozens of crystalline beings, adults and children, crammed into cells designed for human occupancy. Their skin was uniformly dim, cracks spreading like spiderwebs across once beautiful faces. The air hummed with a discordant harmony, the sound of a species slowly dying. One of the adults looked up as they passed, diamond eyes widening in recognition. "Thries Kanur?" Thrin's response was like a bell tower coming to life. Every Vel'Thari in the block suddenly brightened, their skin beginning to clear as harmonic resonance spread from cell to cell. It was like watching flowers bloom in fast motion. "Holy shit," Wrench breathed. But the sudden burst of harmonic energy had consequences. Somewhere in the facility, an alarm began to wail. Emergency lighting switched to red, and Wrench heard the distinctive whine of sonic weapons powering up. "They know we're here," he said. "Bolt, find us an exit route. Thrin, can your people break those cell doors?" The child nodded and added his voice to the growing chorus. The harmonic frequencies shifted, focusing into something that made Wrench's teeth ache. Around them, cell doors began to vibrate, then crack, then shatter as resonance found the precise frequency to disrupt their molecular bonds. 37 Vel'Thari poured from their cells, ranging from adults as tall as humans to children no bigger than Thrin. They moved with the fluid coordination of a species accustomed to thinking as a collective, but Wrench could see the damage their imprisonment had done. Many were barely ambulatory, their crystalline skin showing the cloudy degradation of prolonged separation. "This way," Wrench called, leading them toward the maintenance exit. Bolt ranged ahead, cybernetic sensors sweeping for threats. They almost made it. Grim Vex appeared in the corridor like a pale nightmare, sonic weapon trained on the group. Behind him came a squad of security officers, their faces hidden behind tactical masks. "Well, well," Vex said, his voice carrying harmonics that made the Vel'Thari recoil. "The maintenance monkey has been busy." Wrench stepped in front of Thrin, putting himself between the child and the sonic weapon. "Let them go, Vex. They're refugees, not criminals." "They're property," Vex replied. "Valuable property that belongs to the colonial authority. Now step aside, or I'll add you to the inventory." "Not happening?" Vex smiled and activated his weapon. The sonic pulse hit Wrench like a physical blow, dropping him to his knees as sound became pain. Around him, the Vel'Thari cried out in harmonics that spoke of agony beyond words. But Bolt had been a military dog before he'd been a maintenance companion. The moment Vex's attention focused on Wrench, 100 pounds of cybernetically enhanced German Shepherd launched itself at the man's throat. The sonic weapon went skittering across the floor as Bolt and Vex crashed into the wall. The security officers raised their weapons, but found themselves facing something they'd never trained for. 37 Vel'Thari, whose harmonic abilities had been focused into a single, devastating frequency. The corridor filled with sound that turned metal to powder. Light fixtures exploded. Wall panels cracked and fell. The security officers' weapons simply disintegrated in their hands. In the chaos, Wrench grabbed Thrin and ran for the maintenance exit, Bolt breaking away from his fight with Vex to follow. Behind them, the Vel'Thari moved like a school of fish, fluid and coordinated despite their injuries. They made it to the maintenance shaft just as Wrench heard Vex screaming orders for backup. But the facility's communication systems were part of the same network his sonic weapon had been designed to exploit, and the Vel'Thari's harmonic assault had shredded every piece of sensitive electronics in the building. "Go, go, go!" Wrench shouted, pushing Thrin into the tunnel. The child was brighter now, energized by contact with his people, but Wrench could see exhaustion in those diamond eyes. Whatever the Vel'Thari had just done had cost them. The journey back through the maintenance tunnels felt like a nightmare marathon. Wrench carried two of the smaller children while Bolt helped guide the adults who were barely coherent. Thrin stayed close to his side, humming soft harmonics that seemed to give strength to the others. They emerged into Wrench's residential sector just as the colony's main alarm system began to wail. Emergency broadcasts announced a terrorist attack on critical infrastructure, with orders for all citizens to remain in their quarters while security forces conducted anti-insurgency operations. "This way," Jorik's voice called from an adjacent corridor. The adult Vel'Thari had somehow anticipated their route, waiting with Dr. Tanaka and what looked like half the colony's medical staff. "What the hell?" Wrench started. "Did you really think you were the only one who knew about Voss's operation?" Dr. Tanaka asked, already running medical scanners over the rescued prisoners. "We've been building a resistance network for months, waiting for the right moment to act. And I gave you that moment by breaking them out. You gave us that moment by proving humans and Vel'Thari could work together." She gestured to where Thrin was helping stabilize an injured adult, his harmonic abilities guided by Bolt's cybernetic interfaces. "Look at them, Marcus. That's not just cooperation, that's evolution." Around them, the colony's maintenance staff were working with Vel'Thari refugees to repair damage from the detention facility break-in. Human tools guided by alien harmonic senses, human engineering knowledge enhanced by crystalline precision. What should have been hours of work was being completed in minutes. "We can't stay here," Wrench said. "Voss will send everything she has." "Let her," Dr. Tanaka replied. "We have something she doesn't, which is the truth, and friends in the right places." The final confrontation came not with sonic weapons and security forces, but with data streams and legal documents. While Wrench had been planning his rescue mission, Dr. Tanaka's resistance network had been documenting every aspect of Voss's illegal operations. Financial records showing payments from mining consortiums, medical data proving systematic abuse of prisoners, communication logs revealing the director's plans to expand the operation to other colonies. When colonial authority investigators arrived from the sector capital, they found evidence that couldn't be ignored or suppressed. Director Voss was arrested within hours of the detention facility raid. Grim Vex simply disappeared, though rumors suggested he'd been found in his quarters with his own sonic weapons mysteriously destroyed and his eardrums blown out. The aftermath transformed New Pittsburgh in ways no one had anticipated. The Vel'Thari refugees were granted full citizenship status, but more than that, they chose to stay. Their harmonic abilities revolutionized every aspect of colony operations, from mining efficiency to medical diagnostics to simple quality of life improvements. Wrench found his job evolving from mere maintenance to something approaching art. With Thrin as his constant companion and Bolt as their technological bridge, he began developing new approaches to engineering that incorporated harmonic principles. Systems that had been failing for years suddenly ran like precision instruments. Problems that had seemed unsolvable revealed elegant solutions when viewed through the lens of resonance theory. But the biggest change was personal. "His name," Jorik explained to Wrench one evening as they watched Thrin and Bolt play in the colony's new harmonic garden, "in our language means the small song of our family joy. But he wishes to honor the harmony he has found with you." "What do you mean?" "Thriaska Marcus," Jorik said carefully. "The small song of Marcus's family joy. It is unprecedented for a Vel'Thari to incorporate a non-Vel'Thari name into their identity. But then, much about Thrin has become unprecedented." Wrench watched the child demonstrate some new harmonic technique to Bolt, whose cybernetic implants had evolved far beyond their original programming. The three of them had become something unique in the galaxy, a hybrid family that transcended species boundaries. "Marcus!" Thrin called out, his English much improved after weeks of constant exposure. "Watch! Bolt can now sing in crystal speech." The dog woofed, and his cybernetics translated the sound into harmonic frequencies that made nearby flowers chime like bells. Thrin clapped his crystalline hands in delight. "Yeah," Wrench said quietly. "I see it." For the first time since Titan Station, the nightmares had stopped. For the first time in his adult life, Marcus Kowalski had a family that chose to stay. 6 months later, Wrench stood in the colony's new Interspecies Engineering Center, watching human and Vel'Thari technicians work together on projects that would have been impossible for either species alone. The center was just one of many changes that had swept through New Pittsburgh, transforming it from a struggling mining outpost to a model for human-alien cooperation. "The delegation from Kepler 438 wants to implement our harmonic diagnostic system," Dr. Tanaka reported, joining him at the observation window. "That's 12 colonies now requesting technical exchanges." "Any word from Earth Command?" "Official policy is still under review, but we've had 3 admirals visit in the past month. They're impressed, despite themselves." Through the window, Wrench could see Thrin working with a team of human engineers to design a new type of quantum resonator. The child, though he was growing rapidly and could no longer be called a child much longer, had proven to have an intuitive understanding of harmonic engineering that complemented human mathematical precision perfectly. Bolt lay nearby, his cybernetics now serving as a living translator between human technology and Vel'Thari biology. The dog had become something unprecedented, a cyborg capable of true trilingual communication between human, machine, and alien consciousness. "Do you ever miss the simple life?" Dr. Tanaka asked. "Just you, your tools, and a predictable maintenance schedule." Wrench considered the question seriously. The past months had been the most challenging of his life, forcing him to grow in ways he'd never imagined. Leading engineering teams, liaising with alien cultures, becoming an adoptive parent to a being whose biology he still barely understood. None of it resembled the quiet isolation he'd sought when he'd first arrived on New Pittsburgh. But when Thrin looked up and waved at him through the observation window, when Bolt's tail wagged in perfect harmony with Vel'Thari frequencies, when he saw human and alien engineers solving problems that had seemed impossible just months before. "Not for a second," he said. That evening, as had become their custom, the 3 of them sat together in Wrench's apartment, sharing what Thrin called quiet harmony, a gentle resonance that seemed to ease the stress of their increasingly complex lives. It was a simple ritual, but one that had become the foundation of their unlikely family. "Marcus," Thrin said as the harmonics faded. His English now carried just a hint of musical undertones, an accent unique to Vel'Thari, who had learned the language through technological interface. "I have been thinking about names." "Oh yeah. In Vel'Thari culture, when one achieves full adulthood, they choose their final harmonic signature, the name that will carry them through the rest of their existence." Wrench felt a sudden tightness in his chest. "And I wish to be called Thriesca Marcus Ka Bolt, the song of the family that chose love over fear, harmony over silence, together over apart." Bolt woofed softly, cybernetics translating the sound into harmonic agreement. Wrench found his voice rougher than usual when he responded. "That's a hell of a name to live up to." "We will live up to it together," Thrin said simply. Outside their apartment, the colony of New Pittsburgh hummed with the activities of 3,000 humans and nearly 400 Vel'Thari, all learning to build something unprecedented in galactic history. But inside, in the quiet harmony of their small family, Marcus Kowalski finally understood what he'd been searching for all his life without knowing it. He'd found his frequency, he'd found his home, and for the first time since Titan Station, he'd found his peace.